All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know in parts of the areas of our state, we're experiencing some rain and thunderstorms. So we hope that we'll able to get through this today with no internet interferences. But we thank you for being a part of us today for this special webinar on understanding the Victor E. Bell Scholarship. And we're doing this specifically for middle school and high school counselors. And we wanted to include high school counselors because we know that as our students, again, transition from middle school to high school, you're going to be with them for 4 or more years to continue the process of helping renew their scholarship. So we thank you for being with us today. We'll get started by introducing who will be with us on the presentation. And my colleague, Tequila Hall, who is the regional representative for the 336 area code region. And I am Amy Denton, the regional representative for College Foundation, which we also are Bell advisors for the 252. So Tequila and I will be sharing responsibility and giving information about the presentation. And we're very fortunate today to have our scholarship specialist, Meredith Hardy, who works in the CFI office, specifically with the Victor Bell Scholarship, on with us today to offer some insight and to help answer questions that you may have. So thank you, Meredith and Tequila, for being with us today. And you know what, we'll go ahead and get started. So let me tell you a little bit about Victor Bell and why this scholarship was started. We were very fortunate to have Victor Bell as the chairman of the Board of Trustees for College Foundation for about 30 years. This was back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and he eventually retired back in 1992. And then, of course, upon his passing, soon after 2005, we started this scholarship specifically in honor of him and all of his selfless service that he gave to North Carolina to make sure that new generations of College Foundation and North Carolina, specifically through the contributions that he made through our state and to our state, could begin helping fund an education for so many students in our state. And with the backing of the Board of Trustees, it was determined that we wanted to begin this process with 7th grade students. So that's why we specifically are targeting 7th grade students as the nominations for this scholarship. So again, we're very privileged and honored to have Victor Bell and his family supporting the good works in North Carolina. And we certainly want to remember Victor Bell in his passing, of course, to make sure we can continue this legacy in the state. So that's a little bit of information about Victor Bell. And now a little bit of information specifically about the scholarship. We kicked the scholarship off in the academic year 2007-2008. And at the time, we were only awarding 10 students in the state with the scholarship. Well, for the 3rd year now, we have been able to up the number of students that we can award the scholarship. So we now give 15 students statewide the scholarship. And so they are part of our Bell family. We're very honored that over these years, since 2007, 2008, that we've awarded about 165 students from 119 different middle schools across the state. So we're excited that this is our 15th year. We're excited that you all make the nominations for our students, and we typically receive 100 to 120 or more nominations each year. So thank you for that, and continue to nominate your outstanding 7th graders. We'll go into details now about the nomination process itself. Again, as a reminder, the student must be a 7th grader. He or she must be a resident of North Carolina and be a citizen or a national of the United States, have demonstrated above average academic performance. And obviously you would know this student and you would see that you think there's a lot of potential in this student and potential for a great success in college, but this student may need the funding to help them pursue their college education. That academic success that we want to see from a student at the end of the 6th grade year, on their report card, we hope to see A's and B's in all of their core classes, like their math, their English language arts, science, social studies. So that would be a part of the criteria for you to be thinking about your students and who you need to nominate, that they must meet that academic criteria. Of course, we want them all to be in good behavior. We don't want them to have had any long-term suspensions or expulsions from school. And of course, we need the parent or guardian to consent to being nominated from your school. They have to abide by the policies that you're going by to nominate the student, and we want to get their approval based on sharing information with us about their grades, their academic status, their enrollment status, and certainly all the other details regarding the scholarship eligibility and the renewal. Here's where I may bring in Meredith to share some information with you about showing evidence of family income. So right now, the way we have this designed, for those schools that have free and reduced lunch, the student must qualify for free or reduced lunch or some other need-based assistance for you to nominate the student. Now, we realize that a lot of our school districts across the entire district, all of the entire district have free and reduced lunch. So what do you look at in that case? How do you judge who's really eligible and who's not? So you need to look at any type of other evidence regarding their need-based assistance like Medicaid or SNAP. Meredith, would you like to add anything to that to make sure that we know that the counselors are in the right place with nominating students based on this criteria?
Yeah, we get this is a common question we get with nominations because, like Amy said, most schools now, everyone has access to the free and reduced lunch. Our whole school systems have it. So really, it's one of those things where if pre-pandemic, would this student meet the financial requirements to qualify for free and reduced lunch? Essentially, we are making sure that this scholarship is for kids not that are exemplary in the classroom, but also have issues financially in their family. You know, if they're able to easily afford all this stuff, I'm so sorry. If they're easily able to afford all of this college, you know, this is really not for them. It's for students and families who have a financial need. So you as counselors know your kids better than we do. So if you believe that there is a financial need, this is the type of family that would have gotten free and reduced lunch prior to pandemic, or if you know that they are receiving Medicaid or food stamps or any kind of government assistance, those are the students and families that we're looking for the Victor Bell Scholarship. It's really to help change some people's lives that may not be able to have afforded a 4-year education prior.
Thank you, Meredith, for adding that, because we do know, like you said, it comes up a lot, and we don't want counselors or principals or college access groups to not consider a student because it would be hard for them to really tell the difference between free or reduced lunch and any other need-based assistance. So thanks for sharing that. Tequila, we'll go on and talk now about the call for nominations. We will send out, Meredith will send out in September, around September, the opportunity for each 7th grade, each middle school to nominate one student. If by chance your school has other college access programs like Gear Up or Avid, then you can nominate a second student. So there have been many cases across the past so many years that some of our middle schools are nominating 2 students because of these college access groups. We ask that you nominate your student and return all the nomination forms, and we're going to talk about that, postmark and sent back to College Foundation around mid-October. They can be sent to us in any number of ways, fax or email, and you see the email there on the screen, bellscholarship@cfi.org. That's the avenue in which we communicate a lot regarding our Bell Scholars. The 2 forms that we need for each nomination will be the form itself, the nomination form, and again, that parent guardian consent form. We have made them now as fillable PDFs to make it more easy for you to complete there on the screen rather than having to print and sign and send back to us. So you can do it there on the computer and sign electronically and make the submission back to CFI much easier. So how the scholarship works is this. Once you nominate the student, we pick the 15 winners each year. As long as the renewable eligibilities or the criteria is met, the academic criteria, no suspensions, we're going to talk about that. We will give $2,000 per year up to a maximum total of $20,000 to the recipient. and it goes into the students' a 529 savings program specifically just for that student. It's a special scholarship program fund that we established in the name of each student. For much more information than what I've shared with you right here and after today, go to cfnc.org/Bell Scholarship for all the other details. And there are lots of fine details if you're just interested in knowing all of those. So we'll talk now specifically about the consent form. The nomination form is somewhat explanatory. You list the student's name and other information about the student. The consent form we do have available now in English and Spanish, and it's going to outline the eligibility criteria for the scholarship, and it must be submitted back to that nomination form. We've had several cases over the years that the school will send the nomination form, but not send the consent form. So we have to contact you to say, hey, don't forget, we've got to have that consent form. We've got to have the parent or guardian to sign off for the approval for this information to be shared and for their student to be nominated. So we're going to list on the consent form, you're going to list the name of the nominee, their contact information, and we will ask specifically for phone number, email address, because we communicate in all different ways, even via text quite often. We're going to need the permission for the student to be nominated and you to share their academic standing with us. That's super important that we get the approval before we can consider a student for the scholarship. And other details about the 529 plan, what it is, why we put the monies in a 529 plan, and specific information regarding the renewal for the scholarship. And we're going to talk about that too. And here's just a little bit of a checklist. So to review somewhat of what we've talked about, and for you to be thinking about as you progress toward the fall of the year, I hope that as you are, if indeed you're a middle school counselor, you're thinking about potentially your nominee from your school. So review all the eligibility criteria at cfnc.org/Bell Scholarship. And in the packet of information that we're going to send you in September, give the parent or the guardian a copy of the eligibility criteria and review that consent form with them. The consent form can be printed and signed, or again, you can email it to the parent to sign electronically. That tends to make things a little bit easier. Complete the nomination form, get the signatures from you, the school counselor and or principal, and print, fill out whatever you need to do, just get it back to us. And here are the methods in which you can get it back to us again. We provide you with a hard mailing address to send it to Raleigh, where Meredith and others can obtain that information. You can fax it, or again, you can email it to bellscholarship@cfi.org. So that's a little bit of a review what we need. Consent form, nomination form, make sure your student is meeting the eligibility requirements, get all the appropriate signatures, and the nomination can be complete. Okay. And now we'll talk on these next two slides specifically about the renewal. It's important for you to know this up front because quite often we want to make sure that the nomination for the student that you're giving, the student really has that potential each grade level to maintain the standing of their academic ability and certainly progress toward graduation, meeting the eligibility criteria all along. So again, they must be the resident of North Carolina. The renewal form must be completed every year, and it must be signed by you, the school counselor, or the principal, certifying that the scholar has met these criteria at the end of each of these grade levels. So by the end of 7th grade, and you see the rest of here, 8th grade, so while still in middle school, they must have made no grade lower than 1C in any core course on their final report card. No expulsions or long-term suspensions. Same thing with 8th grade. And make sure that they've signed up to enroll in all the appropriate future ready course of study in high school. And you know the future ready core, those 22 credits, the English, math, science, social studies, etc. Once they reach you, high school counselors, you have to verify their grades too. So now we move into a grade point average. So by the end of 9th and 10th grade, they must have earned at least a 2.25 GPA, whichever is higher, weighted or unweighted. enrolled continuously in those future ready course of studies, no expulsions, suspensions. And by the time the end of their 11th grade, we do hope that they have taken the SAT, and we know the state gives the ACT. So we hope that all of our students will have taken the ACT by then. Continue to maintain the 2.25 GPA. And we'll note on the next page what's going to happen at the point of 12th grade. So once they progress to the 12th grade, by the end of their 12th grade year, or if they are attending an early college, continue to reach the GPA requirement of the 2.25, earned all their credits that was required there in the future ready course of study, have no suspensions or expulsions, continue to, of course, be a resident of our state and a citizen or national of the United States or an eligible non-citizen. So what's going to happen at this point is a few things change. The Bell Scholar must submit to CFI. So that's going to go to Meredith, an official sealed high school transcript to verify their GPA and their course credits. And it could be that depending upon the circumstances, Meredith may be willing to accept it in another fashion rather than an official paper copy and a sealed transcript. We're going to let Meredith make those decisions when it comes to each individual student. The scholar must provide documentation verifying that they've enrolled at least half time in either an associate or a 4-year college degree program at one of our North Carolina institutions. So how do we know that? The student will have to provide a copy of their acceptance letter to that institution or some other enrollment documentation to prove that they plan to attend that particular college. And of course, once they leave you in 12th grade, at that point, they become the responsibility. The responsibility is more on their shoulders because they will not have a high school counselor to guide them after that point. But we continue as Bell advisors to support them and remind them what they need to do when they're in college. So once they're in college, they must maintain the 2.0 GPA. We get a transcript certifying that they've met satisfactory academic progress with their institution, and of course, complete the forms. So the main thing through middle school and high school, we need your support, counselors and principals, of making sure they've met the grades and helping encourage your students to get in the forms. That's the biggest requirement we need of you as the school counselors and or other school personnel. Did I miss anything, Tequila or Meredith, regarding the nomination and or renewal eligibility that you can think of? If not, Tequila, you can share some other very important notes.
Thank you, Amy. And Meredith, if there's something else that you want to share, please just jump in at any time. So I just want to just say Amy did a great job just reviewing that information, because we know this time of the year is getting close to the end and we don't want to forget the students who may be eligible for next year. So, as Amy mentioned, please start thinking about who you may want to nominate. So we have a lot of great information to share with you here too. So it is imperative, again, that we receive that renewal form every year. So if that is not received, it could be possible that the scholarship could be terminated. And so they'll forfeit all funds up to that point. So we try to do a really good job as Bell advisors, as well as Meredith, who's our, our scholarship specialist. We try to do a good job with following up with students. So you may from time to time receive correspondence from your Bell advisor and or Meredith in our home office to say, hey, you know what, we haven't received this scholar's renewal form. Can you help us contact the family to see if we can get that in? So it could be that lots of things has happened. Maybe the student has a new, or family has a new address. Maybe there's a new, phone number. But if you could help us with that, that would be great. So we try not to bother you too much with it. But from time to time, we do have, a scholar who we're having a little bit of trouble reaching. So now, if there's an issue with meeting the requirements, the student does need to reach out to us. So they provide some type of written statement explaining what their extenuating circumstances are. And so we do have the potential to grant a one-time probationary renewal. And so sometimes I know that students and families, they're saying, oh gosh, I'm not meeting the requirement, my scholar is not meeting the requirement, and then they don't communicate. it's imperative that they communicate with us because we don't know why they're not sending in that renewal form or they're not corresponding. So again, if you know that a student is having a difficult time or struggling in some way, feel free to reach out again to our office, to your Bell advisor, and let us know, because we want to make sure that we're retaining the student in the program. Now, of course, the forms will have the amount of the student's eligibility to withdraw for the upcoming year. So we just did a wonderful webinar last night, Amy and myself. So we're again together this morning talking to seniors who will be going to school next year to let them know, hey, make sure your forms are in. It's going to tell you how much you are able to withdraw for the upcoming academic year. And disbursements are sent to the college that they're enrolled. So it's also important that students indicate what college or university they will be attending. And we try to get that information to the school within 5 business days. Now, this is another tidbit that students and parents and maybe even counselors may not know about Bell, is that the scholar has 8 years to use the fund from the date they graduate high school. We do have the ability to put the scholarship on hold if need be. And of course, we do need for the scholar to let us know what's going on, the reason for the hold or requesting that there's a hold. And so what we have seen, in previous years is that maybe the student has decided to take a gap year. We've seen some of that because of the pandemic. It could be that the student is attending a school outside of North Carolina for undergraduate studies. So those are just a few instances where we may have a student who may need to put their scholarship on hold. Now, another point that I just want to make sure is clear is that any funds that are in the NC 529 account that are not dispersed within that time period that I just mentioned, that 8 years after high school graduation, are going to be forfeited. So we do need to make sure that our students and families are aware of that. Now, there are some exceptions. So we can grant some exceptions for reasons that, again, are extenuating. It could be that there's some type of military service. Now, we do have all these rules and regulations on the Bell website. So again, I know you hear us saying this a lot, but we want you as well as families to know where to go if you have questions about Bell. So cfnc.org/Bell Scholarship. Again, cfnc.org/Bell Scholarship. And again, you always welcome to contact your Bell advisor or our main office. So, Meredith, before I move on, is there anything else that you want to add to this particular slide?
No, I don't have anything to add. My biggest thing is just it's really key that people just keep in contact with us. We have a lot of exceptions we can grant for extenuating circumstances. So the biggest thing is just keeping us updated. The biggest time that we lose students, and we do our best to try to keep in touch, do something, is between middle school and high school, and then after they graduate high school. Those are our hardest times to keep in touch with people. So just bear that in mind. Keep in contact with us, because it's a lot of money for these kids, and we want to make sure they're able to use it. And we have a lot of exceptions. So just keep up with us, and we will do everything that we can to make sure the student can use this money and does get access to it.
Thank you so much for that, Meredith. Now, again, here is the Bell website. So if you haven't been there, just kind of pointing out some areas that you or families may have some questions about. So again, I think the major areas that we're getting questions about typically on an ongoing basis is about renewal eligibility, because from time to time, I'll get an email or text or a phone call from one of my parents or the scholar, and just asking questions to make sure they're maintaining their renewal eligibility, as well as award disbursements. So those are 2 common areas that we generally hear students and families asking about. Now, this is about you. So what is your role as a school counselor? We're so excited about you guys, because your role is so important and key to the success of the program. So again, like I mentioned to you before, we may need you to help us follow up with families to make sure that forms are completed, especially during the nomination process. We need the parent and guardian consent forms, the renewal forms, and of course, the renewal forms, again, are an annual document. So nomination is a one-time experience, but renewals, we do need students to complete those renewals on an annual basis. Even our seniors who are graduating, whether if they decide to take that gap year and they're not going to go to school or college for a year, we still need them to do that renewal form. Now for grades 7 through 11, they're signing the renewal form. And of course, we need you guys to make sure that you're certifying they're meeting the academic eligibility requirements. So it's a two-part step. So we need the renewal information for the scholar and the family to provide, but you as a counselor will help us from the academic perspective. We need to make sure they're maintaining the academic standards that Amy did a great job outlining early on in the presentation. We're also asking something relatively new, and I know some of you are already doing this, but we have some of our high school counselors that may have joined us this morning. So we want to make sure that we have a smooth transition from middle school to high school so that high school counselors, ninth grade counselors already know, hey, I have an incoming Bell Scholar, and they understand what their responsibility is each year. So you guys will have the opportunity as middle school counselors to do it for a few years, but now our high school counselors are kind of taking the baton, and they're going to be finishing out until the student graduates high school. So high school counselors, ninth grade all the way to 12th grade, you will be performing the same duties that our middle school counselors have been doing. So again, helping with those renewal forms, making sure they have the most up-to-date information for families, and letting us know about academics and make sure students are meeting those things. Now, we do have our CFNC regional reps, and some of them are on the webinar this morning. Hopefully, they'll be able to chime in at the end if they want to say something. Or we are also referred to as Bell advisors. We like to recognize students, who are either new recipients or those who are graduating from high school. So I know during the pandemic, there wasn't the ability to go into the schools to recognize them during your award ceremonies. However, hopefully things are kind of leveling off with the pandemic some. So you may have some of the Bell advisors contact you and ask you, for new Bell scholars, our seventh graders, are you having some type of recognition ceremony? And as our schedules permit, we may want to come in and just speak on the behalf of the foundation and the Bell family about the scholarship and recognize the student at that event. Now, my high school counselors, the same thing for you guys. So if you're having a special award ceremony that you're recognizing seniors who are graduating, we would love to have the opportunity to do the same thing. Another thing, a role as a counselor that we didn't touch on too, typically when we have new Bell Scholars join, we do like to have the chance to meet the scholar and the family. Some of us will be able to connect with them virtually, but we typically will come to the school and do that and have you as a counselor as a part of that discussion so they understand what the Bell Scholarship is all about and address any questions that they have. So, going forward, hopefully we'll be able to do those things again. Now, we also have a role for the Bell Scholar and parent, and we want to make sure you're able to help us communicate this to parents, whether you're a middle school counselor or high school counselor. But, once the student is in high school, again, we want them to be proactive. We want them to show leadership and for them to say, hey, you know what? You may have already heard from my middle school counselor that, I'm a Bell Scholar. And we want the students to also make sure they're communicating with that ninth grade counselor so that they're aware. So hopefully we have 2 points of contact where the ninth grade counselor knows about that. Again, for renewal forms, for students 7th through 11th, those renewal forms are usually sent out around September of each year. So we need parents and students to make sure, hey, you know what, we're looking for that. That's something that is going to be automatic and completing those forms and getting that back to us. Again, we want students to be involved and again, proactive and, saying, hey, I need to make sure I get the academic certification to my school counselor so they can get that to us. So we really need all that information submitted to us no later than the end of December. Sooner is better, but as soon as you can get that back to us is great. And in Amy's part, she did a great job just talking to us about how you can communicate and get information to us. Meredith, did you want to chime in and say something here?
No, I think you actually covered that pretty well, Tequila.
All right. And then, of course, students who are 12th graders, of course, they're getting ready to go to college, those renewal forms. We try to get those renewal or disbursement forms in around May or early June. So again, completing that information and getting that to us by the end of December. And again, just making sure Bell Scholars are accountable for themselves in going back to look at our eligibility requirements as outlined on our website. And again, keep your information current with us. So that's the biggest piece to make sure that they're successful in the program. Now, what can you do to be ready for nominations in the fall? So again, review the Bell Scholarship eligibility requirements. I know our Bell advisors or your CFNC regional reps, we do get messages from counselors saying, I have a student, I think that might be a good candidate, but can we talk about those eligibility requirements again? So, in the time that we have before the school year is up, let's, as counselors, talk to, teachers or administrators and say, hey, guys, we need to get an idea of who we want to nominate in the fall. Because again, we're going to be getting that out to you guys early fall. So we want to make sure you have, a student or two. And remember, only one student unless you have a college access program. We get that question a lot too. So only one nominee unless you have a college access program at your school. So get your students in mind. Start thinking of students that, would also represent your school well. So again, Amy did talk about you want to make sure they haven't, they haven't been having any behavior problems or long-term suspensions and things of that nature. So you can always email us bellscholarship@cfi.org with any questions you have about the nomination process, your role as a school counselor, and I'm going to throw in also the role of the Bell Scholar and the parent. So again, talk to your CFNC rep or Bell advisor about any questions that you have. Now, hopefully these people look familiar to you. You've seen them in your area. So I know we have schools from all over North Carolina represented. Again, I'm Tequila Barnes Hall. So I am the 336 regional representative and Bell advisor. Of course, my colleague, Amy Denton, she spoke with you earlier, and she's in 252. We have Soretta Broadway, 919. Devin McCarthy James is 828 East. Brittany Privet is our 919 representative. Tamika Ruffin is in the 704 980 area code. Skip Watts is 828 West. And then we have two amazing Spanish services representatives. We have Juana Hernandez Lira and Juanes Ramirez. So Juana kind of covers the eastern part of the state and Juanes covers the western part of the state. So I'm going to pause. Do we have any Bell advisors that would like to speak?
Hi, Tequila. This is Skip Watts, 828 East Regional Rep. We had one question that you might just want to follow up on briefly. If a student, for example, enrolls at a community college right after high school graduation and then chooses to transfer those credits to a university, will they have to resubmit university information?
Okay. Meredith, would you like to address that question?
Sure, yeah, it would be no different if they were going from started at a four-year college. So every year when you renew, we'll just ask for what the transcript was from the community college for you to use for, we're just going to look at your grades at the community college the year prior before your, for the 4 year. So it literally doesn't make a difference in any case. We're just going to ask for the previous year's grades, no matter where it comes from. So you just treat it as you would anything else.
Very good. And Skip, is there another question that we see in the chat at this time?
Oh, Tequila, I'm not seeing any others that haven't been answered by the reps or Meredith. If interested in requirements and specifics, again, Tequila mentioned that you can go to cfnc.org to find all of those specific requirements. I also put the link in the chat. So if you just want to take a snapshot of that, that's a possibility as well. Amy, Meredith, did I miss any questions that we need to cover again?
No, you haven't, Skip. So far, I think you guys have been a great help with answering those questions as we've gone along. So thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
one thing I just want to just say for what I was talking about at the very beginning about financial need, we don't need any kind of documentation. We're kind of leaving that up to you guys when you certify that when you're nominating them. We're trusting that you're nominating a student that will qualify. So there's no documentation needed. It's really up to you guys. Just those are what we're looking for, but no documentation is required when you turn in that nomination form, just the form.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Also want to make sure that our middle school and high school counselors know how to be in contact with the Bell advisors. So I know during the pandemic, there may be some new middle school counselors and some new high school counselors that we haven't had a chance to meet face to face. So want to make sure that you know how to contact your Bell advisor or your CFNC regional representative. So all of our contact information is here, as well as our phone number. So you're welcome to email us, call us, text. And also, if you're not already following your Bell advisor or CFNC regional representative, make sure you connect with us on Facebook or Instagram. We have a wealth of information that we're always sharing throughout the year. And I know some individuals or attendees have asked, will we be sharing the presentation today? So we will be sharing the presentation with you. So actually, I think we have decided that we will send you the recording for today's webinar, and some folks have also asked, can we share the slides? And so we can actually send you a PDF of the slides as well. Now, are you guys getting our Bell newsletter? So the Bell newsletter is amazing. And I know our Bell committee does a really great job providing content that's going to help Bell scholars to be career and college ready. So if you're not getting an edition of the newsletter, we do it 2 times a year. We do one in the fall. Fall, winter timeframe, and one just went out for spring, summer. So if you're not getting that, please just email us so you can start receiving that at bellscholarship@cfi.org. And so we will start working on the one for the fall this summer. If you have any testimonials that you want to talk about regarding maybe a scholar at your school, send that information into us. You can send that information directly to your Bell advisor, and we can see if we can include that information in our newsletter, or against that Bell Scholarship at CFI.org. If you have Bell scholars who want to talk about something they're doing, like a few years ago, I think we had a Bell scholar who started a new club at their school. We have Bell scholars who have traveled abroad and done some amazing things. So we want to make sure we include those things in our newsletter as well. Now, upcoming events, this is just information for you, not just to share specifically with Bell families, but you are welcome to. But, we do as regional representatives or Bell advisors, we always send information to our Bell families directly, and we let them know about any CFNC events that we have upcoming. So you can also share information with not just your Bell students, whether they're middle school or high school, but also all of your families about CFNC events. So cfnc.org/events is our page that we place all webinars that we're doing. So we have a couple that you see on the screen here that are upcoming. So you're going to see one on April 26th, Spring into Saving, Plant a Seed with an NC 529 account. So for families that you work with in your general population that are not saving for college or don't know how to start saving for college, it's an awesome webinar, and you may want to just share that information. We also have another webinar that we're doing a couple days later, April 28th, and we're going to talk about 529 rules. It's just going to be a Q&A session. Any questions that families have about withdrawing funds that they may have already saved. So again, please just share this information with not just your Bell students, but just any family that may be a part of your caseload at your school. And then, of course, need help or have questions. Again, we can't say this enough. Please contact your regional rep or your Bell advisor. You can email us, text us, call us, whatever you need to do. And then our main number is here. So if you have questions and you want to talk to our staff in our main office, you can always contact us at 866-866-CFNC. Again, 866-866-CFNC. And again, don't forget to, like I said, connect with your Bell advisory regional rep via social media, but we also have our corporate, social media pages where you're just seeing everything that we do for CFNC. Of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, however you flow, we do have that. And most importantly, we do want to point out on YouTube, we do have a special playlist for our Bell Scholar families. So hopefully they're joining that, and they can see recordings for previous workshops that we've offered virtually. So that's all the information that we have for you today. Meredith, before we wrap up, I just want to see if you have any other comments, tips, questions that you saw in the chat that you thought would be good to share with the group. But I want to give you another moment or two to share some information, and then I'll turn it back over to my colleague Amy for final thoughts.
No, I don't really have anything. I'm the one who answers the email. I've already gotten a couple asking to sign up for the newsletter, so we will get y'all taken care of. But yeah, if you ever have any question, the Bell Scholarship at cfi.org, I check that pretty consistently daily, multiple times. So if you have anything, just definitely let us know. We're more than happy to answer any questions for you guys.
Thank you, Meredith. And I may have a question that you can help us out with, Meredith, but I want to say this first because I was thinking as I was going through the presentation and also seeing who's in our audience today. I know quite a few of you are representing your high schools, so we thank you for being on because we hope that you do have that middle school student to transition to your high school. But if you'd like to, just to put a plug, why don't you consider contacting your middle school if you don't see them on with us today, to say, hey, let me just make sure you're aware of this scholarship. Your student may transition to my school. It may be the feeder school that from middle school. Consider nominating one of your students. I'd love to have a Bell Scholar at my high school. So if you're not aware of this scholarship, I attended this webinar. I found out a lot of great information about it. And I would love to make sure that you're considering one of your 7th graders to nominate. So one day I could get them as their school counselor here in middle school. The question that I was going to add that came up last night, actually, Meredith, when we met with one of our Bell seniors graduating, her question was, do these expenses, the funds that we have in the 529 cover expenses like a laptop? This particular student is currently using a school issued laptop, but she knows that she's going to need a computer. I know in the past or up to this point, we typically mail the funds directly to the institution. So will it be that that laptop have to be charged through the institution, or can they get funding separately to purchase a laptop? Tell us how that works.
So it is whatever is in the college's cost of attendance, and every school has a cost of attendance. You just Google, NC State cost of attendance, and they'll list everything that it can be used for. So for like that specific circumstance, unless it's something that is through the school, I don't think that unless it's like within those guidelines and you can use that money through your institution to buy that kind of thing, it does have to be specifically within that cost of attendance. So if it's in there, it's covered. If it's not, it's not. So and every school is different with their cost of attendances. Like for instance, community colleges, a lot of times like their living expenses that aren't as much as they are for 4 years because you have dorms and that kind of thing included. So it's the best thing is just look at the school's cost of attendance, and anything within that is eligible to be used for Victor Bell.
Great. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you for answering that. So do you all have any other questions today that we can help you with? And certainly feel welcome. If after today you can't think of them right now, contact us and we'll be able to help you with that. So any other questions from our attendees? All right. Well, we appreciate you being along with us, and thank you to our colleagues, our regional reps, Meredith and Tequila, for helping us out today, share some great information and answer questions. And we appreciate you and all that you do, and the encouragement and support for all of your students, not just your Bell Scholars, but we thank you for the extra little encouragement for specifically these scholars who are attaining this money to help pay for their college education. Thank you for attending. We'll get the information out to you next week, hopefully with the recording and the slides, and we'll go from there. So Tequila?
All I want to say is make it a great day. Thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to working with you the rest of the year and in the fall.
Thank you.